Hi guys, I'm here tonight with Noel Ramos, the creator of the Independent Music Conference, which has been going now for how long?
Since 2003.
2003, and in many cities. Please tell us.
Yeah, this will be our 12th event in 8 years. We started in Philadelphia, and then we started moving around the country after a few years. We went to Charleston, West Virginia, Dallas, Texas, Northampton, Massachusetts, and Los Angeles. This will be the third time in Los Angeles, and our second time at Musicians Institute.
And this year it's going to fall on October
21st through the 23rd.
21st through the 23rd.
Which is actually a little shorter than the conference usually is, so don't get upset with me, folks. But typically it's 5 days, which I'm happy with 5 days. I can breathe. I don't have to worry about cramming things in. But this time it's only 3 days, so I'm really stressing out trying to fit everything in. But we're working on it.
And so tell us a little bit about how you got the idea for this.
I can't tell you a little bit about that, Alex, because that's a long story. Well, I'll try to be as brief as I can. Essentially, I started working with various other music conferences who shall remain nameless, and I got really pissed off because some of them were outright scams. Others were not necessarily outright scams, but because of the way the industry was configured at the time, they still ended up being kind of a scam, because the basic premise of the typical music conference was showcase for us and you might get signed, which is a complete hunk of BS. If you think about the hundreds of thousands of bands who have showcased over the last few, after what, decade at least, how many of them got signed because they performed at a music conference? So that was the shill that they used, the little dangling carrot that they used to get bands to pay a showcase application fee, which essentially was the money that the conference was making, because you get 2,000 bands plunking down $35 to apply for a showcase. That's good money. So long story short, I kept complaining about these conferences and complaining about them, and more than one of my industry friends said to me, Noel, if you're so pissed off about this, why don't you just make your own event and do it right? And I realized that I couldn't, say no to a challenge like that. So thus was born the IMC.
With an emphasis on the I. Good. Now, when these other orgs were talking about getting signed, what did they mean? To a major label?
Yes, exactly.
And is that what put you off and made you go off in this direction?
Not necessarily. I mean, I certainly have no love for the major label system, but that wasn't the main source of my upset. I thought that it was just unethical to coerce bands into plunking down their money and attending these events for what essentially was the wrong reason. They were not going to get signed because they played some gig at some bar in some podunk town, along with 300 other bands that were playing in podunk bars. So that was just completely false right there. Plus, you shouldn't be going to a conference to perform. A conference is supposed to be an educational event. Brain surgeons don't go to their conference because they want to party all night at the bar drinking stuff.
Some don't.
You hope they don't.
I think mine did, but that's, we'll let that go. So your thought was, let's help the little guy, the guy out on the street that's trying to make it and get there, give him information, a resource to go to learn things, come to these conferences and absorb ideas of how to promote themselves, how to make themselves get to the next step, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, specifically, I think of the conference as an educational event for business owners. The basic premise of the IMC is that you must be willing to acknowledge that you are a business. You're not just an artist, you're not just a musician, you are a business person, an entrepreneurial business person.
Or should be.
Well, I mean, I make it a point. If they don't agree with that, they should not come to the IMC. And I actually turn away more people than I invite.
People that aren't serious about their own careers.
Or they just have a different idea of their career. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you want to be a bar band and you want to party a lot, drink a lot of beer, and hook up with chicks, more power to you. But you don't need to come to the IMC.
Wise words. This ties in very nicely with the premise of our organization. This is what we started doing a while ago, not necessarily primarily for an indie, thrust, because there are some people that still want major labels for some reason, whatever, I was on a major label years ago, and it paid off in terms of all the promotion. So many decades later, the promotion is still in people's minds, and
but they're not getting it anymore.
No, they're not getting it anymore,
Yeah.
but it's still in their minds.
Yeah.
And even if they never saw the band live, they saw the promotion for it or something in a magazine or something. So that's the one thing they can do. That doesn't count anymore, as you know. A lot of it's to do with bringing yourself up, learning on the way, and then making the most of what you got. And your conference is just perfect for what we do. And this is pretty much our gospel. That's what we espouse now. So
awesome.
We urge every one of you out there in video land out there watching this to totally check in with this thing. And if you can come to it, if you're in the area, at least come one day. Check out who's speaking and so forth. See which day you want to come. If not, if you're not from in town, you don't have somebody to stay with, then
they can attend online.
Yeah, there you go.
We're going to be doing, are you familiar with Google Plus?
Yes.
They have this Hangout function where you can do video chats. We have a sponsor this year called hangoutparty.com. They take that feed and they rebroadcast it so thousands can watch. So you could actually attend some of our workshops by visiting hangoutparty.com during the conference. This year we're going to be revamping last year's agenda, which is what I typically do. I try to update and stay cutting edge because attendees don't need to know old news. They need to know what information will help them plan for next year. So I take the existing agenda and I modify it and update it. I eliminate stuff that's no longer valid. I add stuff that is, such as we're going to have a workshop that I'm proud of this year that is going to specifically address business plans for musicians, because too many of them don't know that they should do one, or they haven't done one yet because basically they're not sure how to do it. So Steve Scott will be doing a workshop, very intensive workshop on how to create a business plan for your music business. We're also going to be doing a gender issues panel, which I did in Northampton last year, and it was a big hit. In LA, we actually pioneered the Women in Music panel when we were here, the first time we were at Musicians Institute. And that was a big hit, so when I took it to Northampton, I updated it, and we talked about gender issues across the board and other biases in the music industry, such as ageism and whatnot. So we're going to be doing one of those here as well.
I wouldn't know anything about that. Give us some idea of some of the gender issues that you're having problems with.
Well, in Northampton, for instance, there's a huge LGBT community. That's one of the most vibrant communities in the country for lesbians, gays, transgender people. And we had, on our panel, we had one transgendered artist, we had a lesbian artist, and we had a Jewish performer. Believe it or not, there's also religious bias. I know that's shocking.
Yes, I'm so shocked.
And during the discussion, one of our attendees stood up and essentially came out at our workshop and let the world know that he was formerly a she.
Oh, really?
And felt comfortable enough in that environment to do that with us. And I felt that that was the true test of success for that panel. Because if someone can stand up in a room full of people and feel that comfortable and that willing to discuss the issues that they were facing, I think we hit a home run with that one.
It's like being at church.
Yeah, it was kind of like being in church. Testify!
Yeah. What are the other gender issues?
Well, women in general have problems in many cases where they're working with a producer, let's say, and I'm just throwing examples out there, and the producer suddenly decides that he likes her, likes her.
Right.
And that starts to taint the relationship, and that's happened too many times to count. Or vice versa, a male artist is working with a female manager or a super fan that wants to be a manager or wants to promote him, and she has a crush on him, and that starts to taint the business relationship. So those things can become an issue. Or you can just simply be facing gender bias, where because you're a woman, you're not given the same opportunities, you're not treated with the same respect, if you're a really good looking woman, for instance, many times people might think you're not intelligent. You're not smart enough to know your business. That happens
This is
too
a
many
common
times.
assumption.
Yeah, it happens too many times to count. So, and that happens to guys too. You know, if they're really good-looking guys, and a lot of times people don't take them seriously as an artist because they think, oh, you know, he's a pretty boy. His manager's probably running the show. You know, so these kinds of issues are constantly being, and the biggest problem with them these days, because we're living in a politically correct world, is that this stuff has gone underground. So now it's not as obvious as it used to be. It was, in some ways, we were better off in the old days when people came out with their prejudices, because at least you knew what you were facing. Now you could be getting screwed behind the scenes and not know why. And it's because you're a girl, or it's because, you know, you're gay or whatever. So, you know, unfortunately, these issues have to be considered, and they have the most important thing the artists can do is recognize and be aware of them.
And so in the workshop, what do they help people with?
Mostly it was kind of an emotional support thing in many cases. Just knowing they weren't alone was hugely helpful for most of them. Even the artists on the panel, which was amazing to me. You know, these were veterans. We're working with a lot of the stuff that we've been doing all along. So we have songwriter workshops, we have critique sessions, we do lots of mentor sessions, one-on-one with the industry person for 20 minutes at a time, which I highly recommend. I actually force my attendees to do that because you get so much more out of that than you would in a workshop situation. We have vocal instruction workshops. There's social networking workshops, which is critical these days.
Oh yeah.
Crowdfunding workshop. Crowdfunding is awesome. It's not a new concept. It's been around for quite a long time, perhaps many decades. It's a little unclear when it actually started, but possibly way back in the 70s. Have you heard of the band Marillion?
No.
They were hugely successful in the UK on the level of like Genesis or, yeah, they were very, very big. And they successfully did a crowdfunding project way back then to raise money to tour. And it actually got started by their fans. The band didn't even initiate it, which is what was really cool about it. The fans wanted them to tour so badly that they raised the money, 60 grand, to get the band to tour. So what's happened recently is many entrepreneurs have started up crowdfunding websites, and you may have heard of Kickstarter.com,
right.
RocketHub.com. There's an endless list of them now. And these websites allow the artists to create crowdfunding projects. So essentially they mobilize their fan base to contribute money to their cause, which could be they want to tour. They want to record a CD, they need production money, they need to hire a producer, whatever it may be. And they create levels of donation and they provide reward incentives. Now this isn't just the CD, that's part of the deal. So they're essentially selling their CD, but they include other things such as, we'll take you out and get you drunk, we'll take you Amish hunting, we'll take you on a tour of our lavish estate, we'll knit you a sweater, we'll write you a haiku, we'll write a special song for you. We'll let you sing on our album. We'll give you producer credits, and the list goes on and on and on of these cool things that the fans can get in addition to the CD. Well, what crowdfunding has brought to light is that fans will support an artist on a level that is exponentially greater when it's a situation like that with the interaction than they will if it simply means let's go buy a CD. Because a CD costs what, 16 bucks maybe, 12 bucks, 10 bucks. Crowdfunding prices average at around $75 to $90 per CD. So they're willing to pay 90 bucks for the CD in exchange for other things that come along with it. They want to be a part of the fans, they want to be a part of the band's world. They want that interaction. So they're actually paying for the interaction. That has become the new product.
Sure. It makes sense. It's the difference between TV and the internet. One is a one-way thing, and the other one's a two-way.
Bill Perry is going to be here again. Bill Perry is amazing. He runs the Connecticut Songwriters Association, and he'll be traveling out here with his wife Kay. They're both going to be presenting workshops and doing mentor sessions and panels. And Bill specializes in songwriting technique. He just wrote a book called The Songwriter's Coloring Book. And this guy is on a level that's so up there that he has to dumb down his stuff so people can understand it. And even then it's a little highbrow for some folks, but he's very good about explaining it. So his workshops are intense, and they're just like, people come out of them and like, oh my God, I'm glad I took notes. because he's that good. He's an amazing instructor. So he'll be doing some workshops on songwriting, the craft of it, songwriting techniques. He'll be doing songwriting critique, possibly even running what we're calling a songwriters collaborative, where they will actually be put together into groups. They'll write a song together and then they'll perform it at the end.
Like a quick workshop kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Those little exercise things are really good for a lot of you guys out there who haven't done that before, who've never collaborated. You'd be surprised, the old adage of two heads being better than one is really something when you're among heads that are really, you know, in that mode. People who are good writers, you get together with better writers, you'll become a better writer. There's no doubt about it.
And the key of putting disparate musicians together is that they're bringing different colors to the palette that the artist might never have tried before. I remember in Philadelphia we had a really noteworthy combination. There was an older woman, a songwriter. They paired her up with a rap artist and an Icelandic violin player.
Hello.
And it was amazing what they came up with. It was really cool. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they do. So, you know, that forces the writers to work outside their normal comfort zones, break out of their boxes, and become, you know, open themselves up to new creative ideas.
This has always worked for me. Every time I write with someone who is quite different than me, I learn something, even if it's something I don't really want to learn. But it's another side that you can't find yourself. You know, people that write by themselves only tend to start off the same way every time and do the same things every time, you know. And sometimes you really need to step outside yourself and
absolutely
expand a little bit. So that these things are great. Yeah.
I think that songwriters especially, but all artists, tend to work in a bubble.
Yeah.
And that's necessary to some degree, but they have to break out of that bubble as often as they can and get outside critique. A song should never go to finished CD without getting some outside critique first.
Oh, absolutely. All major companies, all the car companies and so forth, they test and retest and vet, and they do everything before anybody sees a product. It goes several years before you even know that it's there.
Right.
And then maybe another couple of years after you do know that it's there, and then it comes to market, and by that time everybody's warm to it, you know, so yeah.
Well, also, some of the other favorites will be returning. Stephen Memmel's coming back. He'll be doing his vocal workshops.
Stephen's a great pal.
Awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. So this is October 21st through 23rd at Musicians Institute in Hollywood, California, right one block from the Hollywood Highland complex, the Kodak Theater complex, which you can park at. And right now outside they're doing a Muppet shoot, is that correct?
Yeah, the Muppets are out there hanging out, drinking beer and stuff by the trailer.
We couldn't park tonight because of them. So what do you know, Hollywood's always like that, never a dull moment. So come on down if you can, spend all 3 days if you can. If you can't, pick the best day for you and see if you can make it work.
And watch the rest online. Visit imc2011.com. All the information you need is there, and you can register there as well. You can chat with us there, send us an email. All our social networking links are on there, so you can visit us on Facebook, on Google+, all those other cool sites.
Thank you, Noel.
Thanks, Alex.
See you guys.